To my faculty colleagues at BCC, this is Lauren Goodman here, and I want to spend some time just talking through some ideas around adapting quickly to remote teaching and learning. I know that none of us expected this and that many of you are in situations that you would rather not be in with your courses this semester, and I want to make sure that you know that we are here for you and to talk through some basic strategies for doing this kind of quick adaptation. So hopefully you already know this, but for sure you are not alone. Your division deans, myself, everyone at the Center for Teaching and Learning Innovation, we are here to help you and have been working hard to give you resources that you need. So whether that's access to technology, we've created a website for faculty. We are working on video tutorials so that even if you cannot reach us or if you need something at a strange time of day, you'll have it. We can also do individual consultations in whatever form is best for you. We'll be running a lot of group sessions throughout the rest of the semester and webinars on different topics. And I hope that you will also really lean on each other and use each other as resources. Many of your colleagues already teach online or in hybrid environments, and it's going to be really important to share resources and ideas and just support one another. I do a lot of work with faculty who are teaching online or in a different modality for the first time, and the advice that I always start with is don't translate, interpret. So that comes from language, right? So translation is usually written, and translation looks like this. Ni hao means hello, right? It's one-to-one. That's translation. Interpretation is a lot more complicated. Interpretation is usually verbal, and interpretation requires really thinking through all the different contextual clues and all the different cultural factors that go into language and how to convey all of that from one source to another. So for me, that translates into teaching in online environments in the sense that you don't want to think about translating your face-to-face course directly into the online environment. That's probably going to be more frustrating than you want. So think about ways to interpret your course and think about all the different contextual opportunities that are available to you in the online space that may not have been available in the face-to-face space. So not just thinking about what you're losing from losing that face-to-face interaction, and I know that there is often a feeling of loss there, but also thinking about how you can adapt and what there is that could be gained by moving into a virtual or online environment. A specific strategy for focusing on this interpretation rather than translation is to really look at your student learning outcomes for your course. Stacey Evans wrote a really great article about this that's up on our Keep Teaching at BCC website, but I'll walk you through it really quickly. So look at your student learning outcomes. What is it that students really need to be able to know and do by the end of the course? At this point, because I know we're mid-semester, which ones have students not yet met or encountered? And which are most critical to the successful completion of your course? So really try to center, look at where you are in the course, not just with content, so not just focusing on what chapter you're on, but really looking at where you are with those outcomes and what your students have yet to encounter or do. Then you want to look at what materials do you have planned? What were you going to do for the next weeks? And how are those related to those outcomes? So you know what your most essential outcomes are. What about the materials? Are there any that don't directly lead to those outcomes? If so, drop them. This is not the time to expand. This is the time to really focus and think about those essential outcomes and the materials and the assignments that you will be doing to support those outcomes. Considering that list of critical outcomes, how can students show you their learning in this different environment? So you can still give tests, but you might want to consider what sort of questions you're asking students. You can still ask students to do assignments, to do projects, to create videos, to do presentations. There are lots of ways that you can assess student learning, And it may be really important to think beyond the traditional quiz or test, because I know that a lot of people have concerns about academic honesty in online spaces. So thinking about what your outcomes are and all the different ways that students can show you that they're meeting those outcomes is really important. And we are here for you to talk that through. I know that that can sound scary or that can sound complicated, but we are here to help you brainstorm ideas and then help you build the activities and assignments that you'll need in the online space to make sure that that works for you and your students. Especially considering the disruption in your lives and in students' lives right now, it's crucial to consider synchronous learning and synchronous communication versus asynchronous learning and communication. Most learning online is asynchronous. So for most opportunities, you really want to think about ways of structuring those so that students can engage with them on their own time. That does not mean that your course should be self-paced. You should continue to set due dates for students. You should have clear expectations. Routine is very crucial. So asking students to have assignments due at the same time, the same day, have discussion forums due at the same time, at the same day. Whatever you can do to create routine is really helpful. And you should certainly be structuring your course by units or by weeks. And you should certainly be giving clear due dates to students. However, it can be really challenging for students to participate synchronously. We all know that our students are dealing with complicated issues in their lives and they have children and parents and others that they need to care for. And so sometimes logging on at a certain time of day to be there for a synchronous session is going to be really challenging. So think about the ways that you can create asynchronous experiences for your students. For example, if you really need to do a lecture, you could do that synchronously, but make sure that if you're using Zoom, you're recording that so that students who can't attend at that moment can still engage with that lecture. And even better, think about pre-recording a lecture, such as I'm doing right now, using PowerPoint slides, uploading to YouTube so that students can watch that material and engage with it when they're able to, rather than requiring them to be in a certain place using a certain tool at a certain time. Please consider using Moodle. I think this is really critical, and I'm going to do my best to persuade you about why I think that you should be using Moodle, even if it's in a very basic way, to structure these learning experiences for your students and provide them with a consistent platform for information. So Moodle is something that most students are already familiar with. Even if you don't have a lot of familiarity with students, your students are in other courses and they are most likely using Moodle in different ways. So I know that a lot of our students struggle with technology, but they will probably have some basic content with Moodle. It gives students a central point of contact. It is their virtual classroom. So things are very chaotic right now, but what we can offer students is this one spot to go to find their course information and content and assignments and to be in touch with you. Moodle is FERPA compliant, so when you post grades and feedback to students, you can know that it is a secure platform. And it's also accessible to students with disabilities, so students who might use screen readers, students who need testing accommodations. Moodle is built for that. So it's very, very important to consider that your students have visible and invisible differences that you may or may not know about, but Moodle accommodates for those. Moodle also automates a lot of tasks, so rather than having your students submit papers to you via email, which you then have to track through your email, a Moodle assignment creates one Dropbox where students can submit their papers, you can give them feedback, and you can give them grades. When you create a quiz in Moodle, which you can use for a quiz or for a test, and you set up multiple choice and true, false, and any kind of question that has a definite answer, that is going to be graded automatically for you through Moodle. Moodle also becomes a lot easier the more you use it, so that's true for you and it's true for students. So it's worth it, I think, to stick with it and get through what could be difficult in the beginning, because it will become easier the more accustomed you are to it. And finally, it really helps us help you if we know what platform you're using. We can fully support you in Moodle really at any time of day. But once you start using other platforms, we might not have that expertise. We may not be able to look at the back end of that platform, and it's going to be a lot harder for us to support you and your students. Communication is really crucial with remote teaching and learning. I always advise faculty, be redundant. Don't be afraid of over communicating with students, especially in the situation that we're finding ourselves in right now. So you should not hesitate to have information and expectations in your syllabus, on your course Moodle page, in an announcement in Moodle, within an assignment that it corresponds to, in an email to students. I would say err on the side of over communicating. So in online spaces, I think about public communication, which is communication that goes from the instructor to the whole class, so certainly not to the whole world. I mean that this as public communication between you and your students in the class as a whole. So the way that you would answer questions about the syllabus, and you would stand up in front of everyone in a face-to-face class and answer those type of public questions. And then private communication in online spaces. So for that public communication, you have a lot of asynchronous tools available to you. I don't want to go through all of them. If you have any questions about any of these, please let us know. And you also have some synchronous tools, such as Zoom sessions, where you can Zoom with your whole class. But you've already heard my plea to think about asynchronous options whenever you can. Of course, if a student or if a group of students has a specific need and they want to have that kind of synchronous communication and you're able to make yourself available via a Zoom session, that's a great option for students to stay connected with you and with each other. So private communication tools are one-to-one, so between an individual student and you. So for example, if you're discussing grades, that's always a private communication. So here are some asynchronous tools, some of my favorite being giving grades and feedback via an assignment. So that is a private communication tool between you and a student. Also, obviously, an individual email is a private communication tool. And of course, you have some synchronous options. So if you have a student who's struggling and you can reach out with a phone call or a one-on-one Zoom session, that's another option for that private synchronous communication between you and your students. And what I want to leave with is just to be generous, especially with yourself. Be kind to yourself. This is not the moment for perfection. This is survival, and this is really making sure that we're taking good care of ourselves and each other, and especially our students. Your course is most likely a sense of stability in your students' lives, and I know that's a big responsibility, but what's really, really important is that you just do the best you feel that you can with what you have to work with, and use us as resources and use us as support and use each other for that also. Reach out, stay connected, but most importantly, just be generous and kind with yourself. Things will not be perfect, but this is not the moment for perfection. This is the moment where we come together, we help each other, and we do the best job we can for our students. If you have any questions, you can of course always email us at moodlehelp@berkshirecc.edu. You can email me directly at lgoodman@berkshirecc.edu, and I am sure that I will talk with you soon. Take care.